Welcome back, guys, to Cut the Curve, episode 10, where I interview moguls, mentors, and serial entrepreneurs. And today we have a local favorite here in Arizona. Morgan is here on our podcast, so welcome, Morgan.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Yes. She is with Home Collective, and her resume is amazing. So she is a general contractor, she's a flipper, she's a realtor, she's a designer.
Yeah.
Anything I missed?
No, I think that pretty much covers it.
Awesome. And like many of you guys, I met her through Instagram,
Yes.
I think during the pandemic.
Yeah, I think when you got on Instagram, I think you were doing flips at that time, and then watched you just go crazy in Airbnbs like the past year. So It's been interesting watching your business grow.
It's been a lot of fun. So you've been in the business now 5 years, you said.
Yes. Yeah, I started towards the end of 2017.
That is super cool. And were you an entrepreneur growing up, or or did you do the traditional schooling route? What's your kind of backstory, Morgan?
So I always had the entrepreneurial spirit. As a kid, I knew I didn't really want to work for anybody. I didn't know what that was or what that looked like, but I knew I always wanted to have my own business and be an entrepreneur. And I always loved real estate. When I was a kid, I always wanted to go into the open houses and look at them. I tried college for a semester, got a 4.0, but I switched my major to business. And it was the first day of school, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to go to school.
As a 19, 20-year-old?
I was probably maybe 20, 21.
Okay.
I graduated high school when I was 17. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I mean, there was so much,
Right.
My parents really wanted me to go to college and do the traditional route, but I just really didn't want to at that time. So I tried it, and again, it was the first day of school. I switched my major over to business that morning, and then I was just like, I'm not supposed to be here. So I left in the middle of class, and 2 weeks later, I bought my first flip.
Holy cow, so you never went back after that?
No, I never went back after that.
And what did your two corporate parents, because I know both your parents are, you said, in the corporate space in the world, so what did they say at that time when you're...
I think at that point because I started flipping with my dad, so, they were always supportive, but I think just they were trying to push me in what people think as, the normal traditional direction, go to college, get a degree, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just knew that it wasn't for me. I needed something else, and so I just started my own businesses.
So were you flipping or working with your dad in that prior to
No, we were not.
Okay.
We were not working together in any sort of way. He had retired about a year earlier, and they had always wanted to flip houses, and I was like, okay, I'm into it. So we bought our first flip, and then I was like, okay, I need to get my real estate license. So I got my real estate license so I could sell our first house, and then it just kind of took off from there.
Steamrolled. Yeah. So your story kind of parlays to mine. When I was a kid, my parents and I used to drive in these neighborhoods and look at homes. That was exciting for me. I'm like, can we go look at these beautiful big homes and dream? And so that was kind of my first taste at real estate. And my dad always worked 5 jobs, so he was a realtor, insurance agent. So I always saw him working all those jobs. I'm like, I want to find one thing and do really good at it and focus and be able to have my time as my time and raise my kids. And that's what took me away from 4 years in corporate to doing real estate, because I wanted more freedom of time more than anything.
Same. The time is the most important thing. You don't get it back. You don't want to trade your time for money. You want to do what you want to do.
Most people, unfortunately, a lot of people don't, because the money is so such a pull for a lot of people. And for me, it wasn't about the money. It was more about the freedom of time. But I had to figure out a vehicle to go there. So real estate happened to be that vehicle, and You know, we had the recession. I mean, you were very young then, but we had the financial collapse
Yeah, I was in
2009.
high school.
Okay. And, you know, I didn't know if I could recover, but had a mentor through that who had been through two others. And, you know, now we're better than ever for going through the hard times, but learned a ton. So
Yeah,
learned a
you just
ton.
have to pivot with whatever comes your way, whatever type of market is. You just have to pivot your business. And the great thing about real estate is there's so many different ways to pivot the business.
Oh my goodness.
That can
Yeah.
match any type of economy.
Right.
And that's, you know, that's the best part.
So what age were you, Morgan, when you flipped your first home?
25, turning 26. I think
Okay.
we bought it in August or something, and I think I turned 26 that September.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you nervous or scared, or you were just
No, I was just like, I just did it. I think, yeah, of course. I think I didn't know what I was doing. We
Where
didn't
was it?
know
Where was it?
So we bought it for $150,000.
Okay.
It is an 85029, so over off Thunderbird and like 35th
North-
Avenue,
Okay.
North Phoenix.
North Phoenix. Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
I know
North
that
Phoenix.
hood.
It was, you know, full of wallpaper. You know, an old lady lived there.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, we bought it for $150,000. I remember I was just like Googling like houses that needed work on the internet. I wasn't talking to a realtor. Again, I didn't really know much, and I just saw this house and I called the listing agent, and it was owned by Fannie Mae.
Okay.
So it was a HUD home, so it was just opening up for investors to buy. And
Were you a realtor at the time?
no, I wasn't.
Oh my
No, I
goodness.
got
So
my
you were just like-
license in the process of flipping. So we were flipping that house, and then I was in the process of getting my license, and then I would flip during the day, and then I would waitress at night.
Okay.
So when I did that for a few years, but no, I didn't.
Yeah. So I've done a lot off that freeway. It's near the I-17, and it's a good starter neighborhood. Like so, you bought that one, Oregon, for $150.
Yeah.
How did you know that was, because numbers, we always talk about ARV and what you buy it for, what you put into it. When I did my first one, I'll share a little bit after you, but like, I didn't know much about that. Mine was off like 50th Avenue in Thomas, so it was in the
Oh, it's in Maryvale.
Maryville area.
Yep.
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 So how did you know you buy it for $150, you're going to be able to sell it for the spread? Did you have someone help you with the numbers? Because when you buy is really where you make your money, because
Yeah.
you know your exit.
Yeah. No, I didn't. I ran comps myself. I went to YouTube University.
There you go, guys.
To learn how to run numbers, and I think Bigger Pockets was a huge
Oh my goodness, yep.
educational platform and taught me a lot. YouTube taught me a lot, and I just did it that way. I think I was working off like the 70% rule at that time,
Okay,
70% minus your renovation costs. So no, and I ran comparables myself. I didn't know how to run them, but I knew what they were kind of. And
Did you, what price were you going to sell it for in your original research, and did that change?
No, it did not change. So I knew that we could sell it for $220. So this was back in 17. And, I think I listed it at $225, and then we appraised at $220. So we got under contract for $225, but we appraised at $220. So no, all the numbers worked out on that end. I estimated about a $20,000 rehab. May have gone like a few thousand over, but not too much. Only thing I didn't estimate was the holding time.
Okay.
It was our first one, and it took more than 8 weeks.
They
Probably
usually do.
about 5 months.
5 months that turned into.
Yeah.
Were you moving walls and?
We did. We took down a wall, but it's also just you don't have contractors. You don't have those connections. You have to
100%, yeah.
hire these people.
For me, that was the hardest part of my very first flip, where I didn't know, like, a roofer, I didn't know a plumber, and I had to develop that Rolodex of people. But in the beginning, it's like starting fresh, so you have to just build it.
You don't know where to go for deals. You just are kind of like, okay, and you do it. But no, I think, that was...
So did you use the hard money to
That
get
one
into
we
it?
didn't use hard money. That one we used cash on.
Okay.
But I did have a hard money one that was about a 3-month longer hold than planned.
It happens. I told you earlier about the Cambridge one. It was in a historic district here in Arizona that Morgan's very familiar with, and I held that one for like 9 months with hard money. Like, that was a rough learning experience, that for sure.
I think we've all had one of those
Yes.
where you learned. We couldn't have, this was a very, we fell out of contract on close of escrow.
That's the worst. Oh
Can't-
my goodness.
I'm not gonna go too much into exactly what happened because it was a nightmare. But that one, our contractor ended up abandoning the job. So we were just left like in the middle of it. They had burnt through all the money, and we're just like, okay, here we are. And this was like, it was in Scottsdale. It was, a 2,400 square foot house. It was huge. It was a massive renovation. We reconfigured the rooms. We added a bedroom. We probably bit off a lot more than I should have, but we did it. I got it done. But I don't know if you remember December of 2018, there was a huge drop in the market.
Yes. Yeah.
But we fell out of contract on closing day, so I had already cleared out all the staging furniture. All of that, like, we were ready to close that day, and the market dropped that month, and it didn't. So we had to hold it on market for like another 2 months until it picked back up in February.
Yeah.
And a lot of my friends who were flipping too, they had houses, and I don't know exactly what happened, I don't remember, but it was the lowest drop in like housing activity, and it happened in December of 18. So didn't expect that, so that had us hold the property for another 3 months on hard money.
So I know you're a contractor now, amongst all the hats you wear there. So was that because you were having issues with GCs on your projects?
Yeah, I think we all know, like, they're very terrible. While there's good, but there's more good than there's bad. And I was basically contracting my own projects at the same time. But to be in compliance here, you have to have a contractor on the job if you plan to sell or rent within 2 years. And of course, I wanted to be in compliance, and I wanted to put forward good products. So it just got to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore. So, I did my experience, I took my test, and I got it, so I can be a
And there's not a lot of females. We were talking about this before the podcast, and I'm glad you're our first female on the podcast in the real estate space. I wish, there was more female contractors, more female like flippers, and hopefully it's coming, more wholesale women, more Airbnb women in the space, because you're killing it. And
they bring, women just bring a whole different type of energy that
Yes.
is so needed in this space. And,
100%.
Contractors have a bad reputation, and people feel more comfortable. I hear it a lot. I feel more comfortable with you. I don't feel like you're going to price gouge me. I don't feel that way with you. And that's, something that's great that I can, give that to somebody and be, a different energy in the space rather than just, men and women are different in terms of how they handle things and compassion sometimes. And
yeah, so you guys will hear it all the time, horror stories with contractors.
I hear it all the time. I've had my own, and I'm sure
Yeah,
you've had your
I have
own.
too over the years, and it's just, I think, making sure, guys, that expectations, because, and keep it get it in writing. Like, that's so critical, because there's a lot of moving parts, right, on flips. One of the worst experiences that I always hear from investors, new investors in particular, is my contractor told me it was going to be X amount of money. Now it's another $20,000. So that, as a new person in the business, like, you don't have that extra 20. You kind of budgeted. So and it always happens like in the middle of the project, it seems. It's like, this is, we told you our number, and then.
And it can, and depending on the property you're flipping when you're new, you get into these houses, especially older ones, and you don't know.
There's
bad
unknowns.
plumbing.
There's
You have to
unknowns.
replace
Yeah.
the sewer line. That's 10 grand right there. There's things that you didn't see that can't be seen in a normal inspection, but with experience comes knowing neighborhoods, knowing
Pockets.
knowing what to look for. Okay, I'm gonna look for cleanouts at this house, because then if they have cleanouts, I probably know the sewer line's been replaced. I'm gonna go check the electrical panel. I'm gonna go check the HVAC. I'm gonna go check those main components of the house that can cost me money, and unfortunately only those things come with experience. And then,
That's
also
big. Yeah.
on the other side, people add things during the flip. Oh, okay, I decide I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this during it. And
So being very clear that, and the contractor and the new flipper, that we could go over, there are some unknowns, and making them understand that they may come up with some issues that we didn't see.
yeah, I think that's important for, this is this home, I tell my clients when I'm in older homes that this could come up. Do you know your sewer line? When's your air bin replaced? You know this, you know that. You want to move walls? Well, like my personal house, all of my walls are load bearing. So it's not just, one wall that runs the opposite way of the trusses. No, all of my walls were load bearing. I had a huge engineering bill because I had to put up 3 beams just to take down one wall.
Interesting.
So
okay.
and I didn't even know that I was going to have to do that, going into that with knowing what I know. So there's a lot of unknowns that come in older homes. If you're flipping track homes, it's pretty much, what's going to be there. They're all the same. The plumbing's been replaced here. And I think,
I would recommend, I always
Yes.
recommend new students start with the track homes,
Yep.
because a 1950 Hallcraft is going to be way different than something that was built in 2000 out in Chandler. So
it's going to take you longer. Older homes that have plaster, that's a longer demo. You could be dealing with asbestos. You could be dealing with things like that. Historic preservation.
what's the
and
oldest
permitting.
home you've ever worked on?
45. 45.
Okay. Mine was probably close, but all the flips I've done, guys, I tried my best to stay away from the homes that were real old, because you talk about unknowns.
They are, with that risk can come big reward, but you
Fact,
can also
yeah.
make big reward in track homes as well.
Uh-huh.
And there's also and some people just love restoring historic homes. That's just their thing.
Yeah, and that's their artistic charm behind those, because they are gorgeous. So can you tell us from a contractor's perspective, Morgan, about the one wall? What is that, like, if you knock down everything but you leave one wall? How does that work? Is it only in Arizona where they don't consider it like a brand new build and there's different permits? Do you know?
In terms, not
Like,
understand the
I've
question.
seen, like, friends of mine that have told me, like, instead of doing like knocking everything down, we'll leave just one wall in the house. So maybe the permitting is different, or?
So just structure. We can, some walls are structural, some walls aren't structural. So sometimes you can get away with leaving a post or a part of a wall in that span to where you don't have to get a beam or possibly put in a footer, which
Okay.
is another cost that comes with tearing down a wall. You have footers, we have to dig into your concrete, we have to put the rebar, and we have to put a proper footer in. So it just depends on the structure of the home.
Gotcha.
And what's going on.
So in your experience, do you get a lot of permits, like through City of Phoenix, and like work with that type of product?
Yep, so I work all over the valley. So City of Phoenix is the hardest for permitting. It's the longest wait time currently, but it's relatively easy to get a permit. Most of them are online now.
Okay.
So it's when you have, depending on the city, like in Phoenix, you could get over-the-counter permits for something that's under 500 square feet that you're building without having to go through a full plan review. But that also depends on what's being done structural-wise and things like that. Every city kind of has their own guidelines. It's not hard to pull a permit. Unfortunately, they're just so short-staffed. It's the waiting time of the permit process that takes the longest and can really have you hold a property for a while if you're not encountering, that time.
Do you take them chocolate chip cookies? Like, how do you get like in front of them? Like,
Do you
get to know some of the people down at because I've never like had to go down there, but like I've known contractors that I work with that go down there, so I don't even know
So with
process.
COVID, you can't even go in anymore.
Okay.
It's all online, which makes it
Gotcha.
even harder because nobody answers the phone. It's by email. You have to be annoying.
Right.
You have to be annoying because sometimes
you-
somebody misses your permit. You have to call, hey, I'm wondering. And sometimes I call and, oh my gosh, my permit was just approved. So
Right. And those permits, do you need them through, once you get the home permitted, do you still need more permits if you find something, or is that just
not, I mean, let's say you're going and you find out the sewer line's bad, then you would pull a permit for the sewer line.
Okay.
Right? But usually it's depending on the type of house, you know what you're gonna need to do up front. But again, not knowing if there's a sewer line or maybe you started permits before.
Okay.
But usually you just pull one round at the beginning.
Gotcha.
And then you're good and through the entire process. And then you just have your inspections. So framing, plumbing, depending on what you're doing.
So I'm curious your thoughts, Morgan, on someone like yourself who now is very good at renovation and you could do a lot of the work yourself, you said, versus so time versus money. So I'm saying for a new person out there that is very good, they could do the work themselves, but they could also hire someone to do the work. So now instead of doing this one deal, they could do 3 deals, but the work, they're trying to save money. So like, what are your thoughts on that perspective?
Hire somebody because you're going to spend the money in holding costs, because people forget about taxes, people forget about insurance, they forget about those things that
Those
also
are good
come with holding the
points.
property longer. And they also don't encounter market shifts too. You
Right.
know, somebody could have been holding a house in January, they thought it was going to be finished in February, and then we get hit with these interest rates and it's no longer the same market. So always hire someone. I mean, if there's like a little feature wall or some fun project you want to do and you want to do yourself, but you want to hire someone because time is money and that's the most, you're
Right.
gonna spend more money doing it yourself.
Even if you're good, guys, because I had a friend of mine, a good buddy, Mike, back in the day, so he was doing 3, I was doing like 6 or 7 at the time he did 3 because he wants to go lay his own flooring and tile. I'm like, why don't you just pay someone? You're making good money on your flips, but that's the stubbornness maybe of him, but like, I highly agree with you on that because it always takes longer.
It takes longer, and you're probably gonna go to the store like 3 or 4 times because you don't have the right tools, right?
Yeah.
Or you don't have the right items. I mean, I get it. If you're a lifelong plumber, then you maybe want to do the plumbing, right? I get it. It's a big cost, but doing everything yourself, everybody makes that mistake at first because everybody thinks it's gonna save them money, but it doesn't.
In the long run, guys,
It doesn't save you
costs you money, right?
Because time is money, and that's
Yeah.
the most expensive thing out of everything. I mean, if you're doing your numbers and it only makes sense that if you're doing the work, then that's probably not a deal that you want to buy because things can happen, and
Yeah.
if you don't have that good of a cushion and it's only going to make sense doing the work, then that's probably a deal that I would never buy.
So we're not going to touch on it too much, but inflation, market shift. Just wanted to know your kind of take because you're in the game every day. We hear a lot of new stuff. I'm not like I see it daily, but I was just wondering your take on the whole shift of market right now.
So in terms of like looking at a traditional real estate aspect, you know, when I started, interest rates were 5 and 6%. My clients had 6.25% interest rates. Granted, I understand houses were cheaper at that point, but you can't have low interest rates and more options at the same time. So I think that anytime you buy a home, at least when I do, even my own personal house I just bought, I go into looking at it as an investment, right?
Yep.
It's an investment. I know it's a home, but it could also be your greatest asset that can bring so much more wealth. So I look at everything as an investment. I don't think it's a bad time to buy. This shift was needed so much because, I mean, we all saw how insane it was trying to get a house.
For sure.
For home buyers, for anything. The problem is, after 08 and 09, they stopped building houses for the millennial generation. There still is not enough housing
Shortage,
for how many
yeah.
people live here. And
I think it's all over the country.
all
Like,
all
yeah.
over the country. There's not enough housing. So I think when people think we're going to get another 08 or 09 again, I don't think that's what's happening right now. There is a market shift, but I just feel like it's back to the market that I came into. You have to put
Facts,
forth
yeah.
a good product.
Yeah.
You know, you can't put out this crappy flip. We've all seen them. You know, you now want to have the best house on the market. You're gonna want a stage. You're gonna want to, if you're not a designer, maybe look at hiring a designer. You know, the basic gray and white flip isn't going to cut it anymore for that price. So there's more competition now, but a lot of investors who only came in during the past 2 years are dropping out. So now is an amazing time for new investors to get in. And
for sure.
I'm excited, one, for, you know, my traditional buying clients. I'm excited for them because it is heartbreaking watching them lose out. Like, I feel it. Like, I cry with them. It is so heartbreaking, you know, when a family is, you know, missing out on all these houses, 20, 30 offers, and, you know, it's insane. But I don't think it's something to be scared of. Again, I'm really flexible. I have so many ways to shift in any market. I'm excited for the new market. I think it's a great time for people to get, who want to buy and get into investing. It's a great time because a lot of the quote unquote competition is dropped out because they're scared of what's to come.
Right, right. So being a traditional buyer's agent too, you must be a saint, because that is hard work. I don't know if you, like, that is like, I could never be a traditional realtor, because you do get your heart broken so many, especially in today's market. Like, the family really finds a house they fall in love with, and guess what? There's 10 offers, right? Or I don't know, probably more than 10. Like,
yeah, no, when I was buying a house, there was like 20 offers. I literally lost out on what I thought was my dream house. But I felt it too. Like, I went through that process as well, but I just believe that everything happens for a reason, right? It's not coincidence that it happened. I loved the house, but I wasn't meant to have it.
And then when you try to force stuff, I don't know about you, Morgan, but I learned
you can't.
It usually bites you in the
it will. Your intuition, your first thought, always follow it.
Yeah.
You always follow your gut feeling about things. And now I bought a great house, and even with renovations, I'm going to have a solid amount of equity in an up-and-coming area.
Yeah, you know, and it's like you said, it's an investment. Like,
it is.
You have to look at it that way, and then you move to another house, and you know.
I moved to another house. I probably paid a little bit too much for the work that it needed, but I knew I could compensate that cost just because of my background. But I also knew where the neighborhood was going, so I was confident buying it at that price.
It's about knowing the pockets, right? And that gets back to what you talked about with working with experienced people that know, well, this neighborhood will need this, certain things.
Yeah, and the age of the home. I mean, if you have somebody experienced, if you have an experienced realtor in certain, not like, I've sold all over the valley, pretty much in every city. And you still know.
What are you, Wonder Woman?
I don't know. I just end up all over.
Like, do you ever sleep? Like,
I love driving. Like, I don't have a problem driving, but I just end up all over the valley.
That's why
somehow I'm here, I'm there, I'm in Chandler, I'm in Gilbert, Phoenix, Queen Creek.
Good, then you know the pockets, because we were doing a video about that. Like, you really need to know the schools, the different things that make the neighborhood great. So
yeah, and knowing what the house could sell for. I think we're coming into a market for buyers too, where you're gonna want a house where you can force appreciation. And that was my biggest thing buying. I knew that if the market shifted, okay, so what? My plan is to hold this house anyways for at least 10 years, and I know that I have that cushion of forcing appreciation.
Can you explain that to some viewers that may not understand?
Yeah, so forcing appreciation is forcing the house value to go up through renovations. So buying a house that needs work. You're always going to have that cushion from being at top of market when you buy it. So you always know, okay, well, I can do renovations and increase my value rather than buying a fully renovated home at the top of market. And that works for people, and that's fine, but it also depends on your strategy, where you're at in your life, your job, and what you want to do with the house. Is this your home you want to live in forever? Is this, again, how do you look at it? Is it an investment? Is it a home? What is this for you? And I think if something's your home and you love it, make it what you want it, pay what you want for it at the end of the day, because how you feel about your home, the energy that's in your home is important.
For sure, for sure. Hey guys, quick announcement. I just launched my new Passive Income Accelerator course. In this course, you'll learn how I built my Airbnb portfolio to 10 properties and growing while amassing $3,000 to $5,000 per property per month. If you want to learn more, go to piaaccelerator.com/go and sign up for the early bird special. And now back to the podcast. And if I had to go up a little bit, I typically went up if I really wanted that property, and ends up I made money on it anyway by going up a little bit. So what about like your niche with investors? So so one of the main questions I always ask realtors when I was trying to build my team back 20 years ago, I read a book and it's like build your team, get a CPA that understands real estate, get certain people around you, a hard money lender, mortgage broker. So what does that look like? Do you work with investors like as a realtor? Did you purposely get your license to work with investors, or what was that? Because there's so many options when you're just entering real estate,
I didn't limit myself to a niche per se when I started real estate, because that's just me. I want to do everything. I want to do everything. I want to try it all.
She's Wonder Woman, basically.
I want to, So when I went in, I just started working with investors because I was investing, so I understood it. I was working with flippers. I help investors. I'll sell their houses and I'll also design it for them. Sometimes I'll contract it for them. It just depends. I just got in, and that was a specialty for me, is working with investors.
And I feel like it's a one-stop shop too for your investors, because
they
have that knowledge of they're not having to look elsewhere. They're like, you have this, this, and this.
Yeah, and that was my goal, starting my business, to be that one-stop shop, because I know how frustrating it is to go to all these different, being a contractor, I'm dealing with all these subcontractors, so I know how hard it is to go through all these. But, I've done my fair share even after that. I had originally gotten my license just to, do my own flips and sell my own, but then I just started taking traditional. So I've worked with it all. I sell houses that need work a lot. My investors, I sell their houses for them when they want to go on market. I sell a lot of fire damaged houses. I sell renovated houses. So I don't necessarily limit myself, and I never wanted to, but I've pretty much worked in every aspect of.
And that's amazing, because you have a broad spectrum of what you could, you learned a lot of different areas.
Yeah, and, I needed all of that in my business. I felt like it was, it's an asset to have.
Right.
To have that knowledge, because a lot of people don't. So it's nice to be able to provide that not only for myself, but for other people as well.
So what do you look for? What do you think someone just starting in the home flipping business should look for? Is there price, neighbor? What did you start looking for as a investor?
I think I stuck to numbers, and I stuck to places that I knew that were close to home. So I knew North Phoenix very well. I grew up around there. I knew it. I knew who was going to be buying in that neighborhood because I lived there. If I was a first-time flipper, would I go into a luxury market? Probably not.
Right.
Probably going to, unless you have a partner.
Right.
That's not, I love townhouses and condos. I've made most of the money on townhouses and condos. They're one of my favorite things to do.
Crazy you say that, because I stayed away from townhouses and condos for years because, what about those HOA rates? I made so much money once I got into townhomes and condos. One of the best things, as you know, you don't have to do the exterior.
No, and it's usually a smaller space.
Yes.
So your budget goes a long way.
Yep.
And
so as a first-time investor, that's perfect.
I love them, and I still to this day will do townhouses and condos because I love them. You can flip them fast. There has always been a housing affordability, and those are, the next affordable type of houses are townhouses and condos. Depends on the area. Sometimes I will stay away from high HOAs, like $800-900 HOAs, crazy things like that.
But $250, you're okay
that's
with.
Standard.
That's kind of normal.
That's normal for a townhouse or a condo because of some of the amenities you're getting and depending on your exterior maintenance. Mm-hmm. But it is nice because they just focus on the interior, and it's fast.
Yeah. So I bought one in Central Phoenix recently, and I got the HOA and it was $560, and I'm like, I've never paid that much for HOA, but it includes all the AC, like,
Yeah.
and I'm like, that's pretty good because the guests, it's now an Airbnb, the guests come and especially today's what 115 out there, so they crank it as
they're
low as they
dying.
want.
People come here. It's like they put it on 60 degrees.
Exactly,
So.
exactly. So having that 550 in retrospect, it's not that bad because your AC bill is a fortune in the summer, as we know.
Yeah, I sold a condo in Central Phoenix with about $1,000 HOA, but you had a pool, your utilities were included, you had all these specific amenities.
Yeah.
And yeah, sometimes it may take a little bit longer to sell, but there are people who like that.
Right.
There's people who don't want to deal with their house, you know, or they're not there all the time. They don't want to maintain.
Right. There's no big backyard, like, and I don't
Yeah.
know, like what the millennials do or like how that generation, but there's a lot of people that are traveling a lot. They're not really there. So
Yeah.
they just need a place to like sleep.
A lot of
and-
young professionals,
young professional,
you know, maybe
their
young
first
couples,
time at their job.
first-time home buyers, maybe just moved here, don't know where they want to live yet.
I love that advice though, Morgan, because they're more affordable for us as investors too. So for your first one, like my first Airbnb was 2.5 years ago, and I paid $185 for it, right off 44th Street and like the 202
Okay.
by Sky Harbor.
Okay.
And my buddy Sasha, he's like, it's this price, and I'm like, I don't pay retail, but then he showed me the financials on the Airbnb. It had been an Airbnb for 8 years. I'm like, I'll take it. So, and that was a townhouse, and it's just, look at the townhouses, look at the condos. They're very low entry, and like my flipping has mainly always been bread and butter stuff. So stuff that's, you know, affordable housing, because you could always move that out.
Yep.
And so that's kind of what I've done over the years. I was going to ask you, what was your biggest project as a home flipper?
Was the project where everything happened. The contractor abandoned the job. The buyers fell out close of escrow.
That was in the Scottsdale one?
That was Scottsdale. That was Scottsdale. And so again, we moved to the kitchen. We added a bedroom. I made this massive closet into a master bathroom. So I converted the closet into this massive ensuite. So I took on a huge and that was only my second flip.
Oh my goodness. She stepped into it.
But I'm just like, okay, let's go.
Let's learn.
You know, looking back, could I
Who did you do that alone, or did your dad do it with
my
you?
dad was on that one as
Okay.
well. Yep, he was on that one as well. So, I mean, that was I learned so much. But you learn so much when those things happen, because if everything went perfect, then you wouldn't learn.
And that's the thing, like if you want to flip, you have to be at the project. Like go down, if you hire a general contractor or you manage subcontractors, I've done that before because I learned so much by being there. And years ago, I started working with a lot of Canadians when the recession happened. So I was doing them a disservice by doing everything because they wanted to learn the flipping business. So if you really want to learn, you got to be in the job, seeing
Yeah.
it, observing it.
Definitely. At the start, you need to be there. And then again, you build systems and you start building
Yes.
a team that you trust to do that for you. But at the beginning, you're doing yourself a disservice by not being there.
Right,
Because
right.
you don't know everything. And if you did, then what's the point of anything if you
Right,
don't know
and-
everything?
And one of the things, as we talked about prior, Morgan, is like the numbers. So how much is it going to cost me to do this 1,100 square foot townhome? Like, and the other thing is, if you're flipping it, make sure you don't overbuild it, because I've done that in the past where, you know, especially when I've had certain partners and they have these ideas, and then I get excited and then we're overbuilding, overspending. So know your pockets, your neighborhoods.
Yeah, you have to, I mean, you have
the
to stick to your
comparables.
numbers. That's something that I was always able to do, but I was also able to be creative and still get what I wanted but you have to, or you're going to lose money. If you don't stick to your numbers and stick to what you know. And
What was your budget out there in Scottsdale? Do you remember?
so that budget was originally, the contractor had quoted us $40,000. We ended up spending $100,000
Oh,
on that house.
on renos?
On everything, on the reno. I think it was reno, hard money
Okay.
costs all together. But it ended up being double what our original budget was for that.
So in the midst of the project, you had to let the contractor go, it sounds
He
like?
abandoned the job.
Oh,
he did
Okay.
his normal contractor thing, ran out of money, used rob Peter to pay Paul. And
I had that happen to me in
Yeah.
Scottsdale, as a matter of fact, in Old Town. And then, like, what do you mean? I paid you for these beautiful cabinets and you got these? Like,
Yeah, it was
you have to make sure, like, here's what I do nowadays. I would go see 3 of their properties, see what kind of quality of work they produce, and then maybe give them a small thing to do, a smaller job, because
100%.
40,000, like 50, that's a lot of money to.
Yeah, back then it was. I mean, now that doesn't get you much of a
Right, of
renovation.
course, the prices
but
have-
back then it was a decent amount. But we didn't lose money. We definitely didn't make as much money as we wanted to.
Right.
But
You didn't lose.
we didn't lose, and that was.
Let's talk about losing, because I know I've lost, like I mentioned to you, on Cambridge, 19th Avenue in Canto District. I know I lost 80 on that one, so that was my biggest loss ever. Hard money, closing, holding. Then I did it wrong the first time. I had to totally renovate it again. So
You renovated it twice?
Yes, yeah, because the realtor's like, you need to add this, you have to do the kitchen this way. So that was early on, and but it was painful, but learned a ton through that.
I probably made it back tenfold. So
Yes.
So it's no, I've never lost money.
I want to hang out with her more.
I'm gonna stick to that.
Take her to the Vegas.
I've never lost money, but again, I can be realistic with myself. I get it's hard to look at a house or pass up, or maybe you're not getting deals in all the time and you just want to get in, or you just want to do something. But that is I have passed houses up that I have fell in love with because the numbers didn't work, and it's just sticking to the numbers.
It's numbers. It's not that's why I could never deal with traditional home buyers, because it's very emotional. And that's understandable, because that's where you spend most of your time. But for me, it's numbers. For Morgan, it's strict numbers.
It's numbers. No matter how much I love it, no matter what I want to do with it. And again, I design my houses more than probably my competitors, but I can do it without spending that money, because there's ways to be creative and problem solve and still get that same effect. But that also comes with working with somebody who knows design, or hiring a design professional. So it kind of just depends on your skill level and what assets that you bring to the job. And sometimes it's good to partner with somebody who's the total opposite of you, who can bring that to the job, especially if it's your first few or something. JVing somebody.
JV is a great idea. That's joint venture. So again, a lot of you guys say you don't have money, and that's kind of a limiting belief. Because I always know money is easy to find. The hard thing is finding those deals that make money. So you have to know the numbers, and money's everywhere. So lock up the deal, and then figure out who to JV with or bring it to us.
Because if it makes sense, people will give you the money.
Exactly.
If it makes sense. So it's not, everybody does get caught up on the money, but if you have a deal, you have a deal, and somebody's going to be interested in it.
Yeah. So where do you find your deals? How have you been able to stay stability? Because I personally I stopped flipping about 2.5 years ago, because I started the Airbnb business, and it's a different business model that we could talk about. But where are you finding deals, or where would someone watching this, where would you recommend they track down deals?
So I got a lot of, when I first started, wholesalers were actually, still kind of wholesalers. They're not really so much anymore. If they don't want to flip it, they'll put it out. It's not what it used to be. But there's wholesalers. I just, through social media and, marketing, in a sense, people saw what I was doing, and they would come to me with a deal, or somebody needed to sell their mom's house, or somebody was, underwater on a flip. We
And
bought,
I hear it's TikTok. Is it TikTok?
so back in the day, I wasn't using TikTok. I got it from Instagram, but
Oh,
TikTok
awesome. And that's how we met, through Instagram.
is where I convert most of like my design and renovation leads come from TikTok.
So you don't advertise. It's
I don't
right
advertise
on,
at all.
It's probably the new way to advertise.
Yeah, I've
like
just always,
TikTok.
I'm really good at social media and marketing. In marketing through social media in a sense, but no, I've never paid for advertising. I've never
So
paid for
you
leads.
like me, so my business has always been like networking with
Mm-hmm.
realtors, because one of the common questions early on was like, oh, you're just going to work with me as a realtor. Well, I'm an investor. I need so many homes, and like there's so many different pockets like we talked about. So as an investor, you have to keep the options open and work with a multiple number of realtors out there that bring you deals. So like we had a realtor bring us a Scottsdale deal because it was a hoarder's house and she can't really list it. So things like that, guys, if you establish rapport with realtors, I think for me that was my way to get a lot of business.
You're gonna attract what you put out there.
Yep.
You're gonna attract it. If you're on social media, you're talking about investing, you're
Power of
talking
focus,
about this,
guys, yeah.
you're talking about that, those things are gonna come your way.
I believe in that, yeah.
And that's just how I got my flips. They would come to me in a sense. I bought one from a wholesaler. The rest of them came to me needing to sell. So because I put myself out there in that sense that this is what I do.
Yeah.
So, I'm a firm believer if you put it out there, it's gonna come to you.
Yeah.
So.
So-
Not saying, not everybody can do that. There's so many ways to find leads. Some people go after foreclosures. Some people go after, certain things. You just kind of find your niche. Some people still door knock
Right, yeah.
and do things like that.
And now is a great time to new people to enter the marketplace, because again, some of those people have dropped off. Guess what? Like,
A lot of people have dropped off.
Yeah.
Only so many investors who just got in it and who only made money because the market was appreciating so fast.
yes.
Who probably overspent, who just bought to bud and got lucky. A lot of those people have dropped out now
Right.
because they're scared of the market. But if you have a different type of mindset, you see this as this massive opportunity to get in now.
Yeah,
To it.
100%. So do you, Morgan, do any like networking events, or is it all through social media?
I don't do a lot of networking events. No, I should. Kind of actually quite introverted.
Me
so
too, but
I'm
an
trying.
intro extro because I'd like to be around people, but then I need my time to recharge.
Recoup and recharge, and
because it's so giving all the time when you're like,
especially when that's not like naturally you. It's like hard, but I am
100%.
like coming out here. Like I've never done a podcast before. Like I
Thank
would have
you.
never thought.
Thank you for
like, I've never done a
coming on
podcast before. Like I'd be like, oh, but
stretch a little bit, right? Like,
yeah, but social media has, you have to come out of your shell on there in order to build a following or.
but you have so much great information for people out there, whether like, let's face it, women, like they should follow you because they could learn a great deal from your journey as, doing things that a lot of women know they could do, but maybe there's a whatever, I don't know, but like
I think everybody's big thing is, how do they get, that's the hardest question
that they ask you.
ever get from anybody, and it's the hardest question for me to answer on how to get started because there's no clear path.
Right,
I can
right.
tell you, go pull up foreclosures, call them, do this, try to see that. I can tell them this, but I literally just jumped in and there's no way to start. You just have to start and you learn from there or get a mentor.
That's the thing, yeah.
I never had a mentor and I wish I did, but I also learned a lot from not having one.
Interesting.
Because I didn't have somebody there to mentor me through.
So you had to figure
I
it
figured
out.
everything, and that's why I know so much, and I'm not saying that that's a path to go, because if I could go back, I would 100% have a mentor, but I also had people who were willing to help, who I could call and, ask things to sometimes, and again, the internet. Like
Yeah,
I'm
like you mentioned YouTube
I
University.
am on the I was on the internet all the time. I read books. I did that. You know,
A lot of self-development too, like.
it did, and I think that's part of the reason why I got so far, but I think at any part of your career there's always going to be somebody who knows more than you.
If
And
you're the
always,
smartest person in the room, there's a problem.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to be like, you want someone to elevate your.
always having a
Yeah.
mentor or, you know, different partners, again, different JVs. You guys bring so many different things to the table that can expand. And it wasn't because I didn't want a mentor. Again, I'm super introverted. I think I was just more scared to ask or to
Right.
like put myself out there.
Right. Like, what are they gonna say?
Yeah,
Or,
what are
like,
they going to say? Are they going to
reject me?
Yeah, exactly. And it's scary at some point. I get it. I was there, and I think that's why I went through. I think my growing process was slower than if I would have had a mentor.
Right.
So,
And it's different for everyone, right? Like, so, but there is a way to excel it with a mentor.
100%.
Because nowadays they're so accessible and
they're
like,
everywhere.
Yeah.
Granted, there's, you know, people trying not very good mentors there's people mentoring who have never done it before, right? And there are also, you know, mentors out there. So if you can bring value to a mentor.
Love that. And all the guests talked about bringing value to the mentor, because like one of the worst things is like, hey, Flip, can we take you out to lunch or pick your brain? And that's not really value to me. Like I don't eat lunch some days. I like picking my brain. What is like provide value, like something they could help us with and then that goes a long way.
It does, you know, picking your brain. When people say they want to pick your brain, it's hard sometimes because while you do and you're more than willing to help, there's no, you know, you get to a point to where you're busy and, you know.
Yeah, it's not
what
that
do you
I
need?
don't want to help, but like I have a schedule, like time man, like I would love to help
have to.
everyone.
I want to respond to every single message that I get. Like I want to help people in that sense, but it comes to a point where it gets hard. So you do have to bring value to someone. And then I know you think, oh, well, what value can I bring? I don't know. What do they need? Do they need somebody to run around and do things for them all day?
Alex Camacho was on the show. He hired someone to, like me, I hate driving. He gave me a good idea. He hired someone to drive him places while he was on the phone making deals. How great would that be for someone that could do that 4 hours a day? For anyone would bring that.
May not be the most glamorous job. Some people.
But you're hearing him on, like, that's like a golden just to get in the door, guys. Like, and it may not be glamorous, but like, who cares? Like, I would dig up whatever you need to dig up to get in the business.
Right,
I just
and you know,
wanted it in
you're
so bad.
trading your time for knowledge now, you know, and that's invaluable is, you know, giving your time to someone for that person's knowledge. It's an invaluable thing to give them.
For sure.
You know, it may not be the most glamorous job at first, but the real estate community and investing community is so nice.
100%.
Everybody is so willing to help, especially if you're willing to help yourself too. Because
That's the
helping
thing.
yourself
Yep.
is also bringing value to that person that you want to learn from. That's helping yourself. So why it may not, don't ask somebody if you want to pick their brain. Do you need somebody to do this? Do you need somebody to drive? Do you want somebody to door knock? Do you want somebody to do flyers? Do you need help with your social media? You know,
I'd be like, yes.
yeah,
Come
okay,
help. Come on
come
over.
do this. And then,
Yeah.
you know, well,
And it's a
we'll talk.
trade-off, guys, because again, they may not have money to pay for mentorship, but guess what? You need help. Brent,
everybody
is growing
needs
their
help.
business.
You just have to be creative and put yourself out. And putting yourself out there is the hardest part because everybody has always been so friendly in this community and so willing to help, and they love helping other people.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, achieve, because everybody you come in contact with who wants help isn't going to do it, right? Because it takes a specific type of person.
It really does.
To want to change their life, a specific type of
Because
mentality.
after a certain age, what is it? You're kind of hardwired a
You're
certain
hardwired
way.
to run the rat race.
Yep, let's face the facts, guys.
You're hardwired.
9 to 5, 30, 40 years. And like, when I told my parents I was leaving corporate, they're like, what's wrong? Like, something was wrong. Like, they didn't understand, like, I want to go make my own things happen. Like, and it's been a blessing, but it hasn't been easy, right? It's not an easy
It's not
path.
easy. It's not immediate. It's not glamorous. It's not anything, it's working smarter. You don't always have to be, working. I think also like hustle culture can be toxic, that you have to work 24/7 to get somewhere. And that's not, if you're creative.
I got really sick like 4 or 5 years ago, and I thought that was the thing to do. Like, keep working, but it's not. The balance is so important.
Creative thinking and thinking outside the box and developing systems and hiring people
Teams,
to
systems,
help you
those are like
is, working this 24/7 is not sustainable for anybody, and I don't believe in that. And I don't think that you have to, hustle culture. There's work smarter. You're having, your health is the biggest thing, because if you don't have your health, it doesn't matter what you're doing.
Right. And I still believe in like vision boards, like visualization, like meditate, like all that really works.
And I think that's a common thing in any type of entrepreneur. We all do that, right? We all meditate, we all journal, we all manifest, because we know the power of thought, and we know how it works. And I know it's different when you're not in that yet, but once you get into it, a whole world of opportunity opens up to you.
Yeah. So when I first there wasn't the YouTube, so I'd be at Barnes and Noble in the self-development. Like, like no one would go to those sections, but nowadays everyone is in that, because you could get it from YouTube. So when I'm alone upstairs, I'm turning on YouTube. I'm listening to books. I'm listening to positive affirmations. Like, I do that, and it may sound, but it works.
I don't watch, it's very rare I watch TV. If I'm in my car, sometimes I like to listen to music, but I'm listening to a motivational speech. I'm listening to something like that.
And it's so accessible, guys, and it's
on YouTube.
Free. Yeah, it's free.
It's on
whatever YouTube, like
whatever source. There's podcasts you can listen to, and we spend so much time driving and in our cars, and if we take that time to read a book, maybe you like reading.
Or listen to Cut the Curve. We're on Spotify now.
Yes, listen to podcasts. If you take any of the time you're wasting watching television or any type of programming, or just doing things that aren't progressing you.
Yeah. And, if you listen, well, this was years ago, but you open the newspaper, not a lot of people read newspapers anymore. It was always the doom and gloom. Like, go to the podcast, listen, I don't listen to local news and stuff like that. I stopped watching the news
probably 2 years ago, and it's been the best thing. Because that first 30 minutes of your day is the most
sets your day.
important time. And, when you wake up, you should not be checking your phone. You should not be looking at your email. You should not be going on social media. You should spend that time for self-reflection, meditating, journaling, getting yourself ready for the day to handle all the reactive things that are going to happen, all the conditions, the pissed off email. I don't meditate in the morning or do some type of self-work before I go out for my day. I know how it affects me.
Yes. If you ever had to rush out and you're like,
and you just feel like everything went wrong that day.
It steamrolls.
Because I didn't take the time to center myself and to get there. And now when conditions come at me, it's okay. I'm not going to freak out like I would, and I'm not going to react.
You're even, and you're not like, okay, I'll get back to you. Let me think about the situation, and instead of so it definitely helps, but it takes discipline. But why wouldn't you want to learn that skill and do it when you wake up, whether it's reading before you go to bed to 10 minutes reading it becomes a habit after you do it for so long.
And it's a habit, and then when you don't do it, you see how it affects your day and your life. Like, if you miss that, if you don't center yourself at the beginning of the day, and if you don't do these things, because then you just get stuck back in the rat race.
Yeah, and we have the game over there. I don't know if you played it. Rich Dad, Poor Dad board game?
No, I've never played that.
Oh my goodness, we should have you over for a game night.
Is it like Monopoly?
It's similar.
I love Monopoly. I've loved it as a child, and now I know why.
That's my favorite
this is mine.
Too. Yeah.
I love Monopoly. I'll spend hours playing it.
Okay, we'll have you over and we'll play Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but it's spun off the book, of course, and the goal is to get out of the grind, the 9 to 5, and create your own reality per se. And
Yeah,
it works. Like, but the thing is, you got to stick to it, guys. Like
you have to, and you'll fall off. I think we've all fallen off
for sure.
of it.
Yeah.
And then you start again, and then you fall back off. But the main thing to it is what your essential morning routine is maybe not going to be somebody else's. So you have to find
your
you have to find
routine
what
that
works for you.
Yeah.
You know, I meditate. I know every day I meditate. I journal. I do shadow work. That's a huge thing.
Shadow work.
Shadow work. So shadow work is working on and accepting maybe, I don't want to say negative, but negative traits you have. So for example, like, this made me react to this day. What happened? What can I think back that happened that made me have this reaction, right? Because when people have negative reactions, it's a projection of themselves inside. It's because something has happened to them. Because if not, if we worked through that, like you said, we're not probably going to react to it. So it's really finding out the things that make you react and those parts of your personality, because everybody's not perfect. We all have bad traits.
Yeah, and we will react, and then I hear you. Like,
and when you become aware of those traits,
self-awareness,
and you know why you're doing it,
right?
And the biggest part is becoming aware that you're doing that. Once you start becoming aware, then you can start fixing that, and it just makes you grow, and that's huge into self-development and self-growth, is knowing what makes you tick, knowing how to react, knowing why that made you react.
Yeah, especially as an entrepreneur in the real estate space, owning your own business, you have so much that you could react to, but just learning how not to react, and it's a constant work in progress for me.
It's always, there's days, I say so much of how, try not to be reactive, but there are days I have my reaction.
Right.
Usually I'm by myself in my car.
Some days aren't as good as the other days.
But I react too, but the mentality I have now versus 4 years ago, I wouldn't know what to do if the things that have happened to me now, if I wasn't, doing self-help, self-reflection, meditation, journaling, and figuring out about myself, because your bad traits aren't necessarily going to be bad anymore if you're become aware of them, and then you're able to fix them and work on them.
Right. That's beautiful. Yeah. So it's different for everyone, though. You have to figure out what works for you as an individual. And it took me, like, journaling has always been my go-to, because for me, like, since 6th grade, I would write goals in my Snoopy journal and all that. So I still have those, and it's cool to look back to. But, like, it really helps you, like, let go of rough moments, and, like, for
writing
me,
it down, reading it,
visualizing your goals, accepting tough stuff. So that's what we learn as entrepreneurs, because it's not an easy road. Like,
it's not. Your paychecks, you don't know, I'm going to get paid this amount every week. You may have a few months without income.
I've all had those.
We've all had those months where we don't have any income, and that's just, we've had this. It's such an up and down, and it's a mental game. Entrepreneurship is mental.
Yes.
It's a mindset change from what you've been taught growing up your entire life, that you have to go through, school, and you learn these things, and then it's up to you to really gain essentially critical thinking skills.
That's big, yeah. And one thing I would say to that, Morgan, which I wasn't good at, is asking for help. Like, I'm not talking, like, it may wind into your personal life too, but in business, like you mentioned earlier, so many in the real estate community are willing to help you, but we don't know you need the help. So it's like,
and I don't think any time I haven't asked for help, someone hasn't helped me.
100%.
And I think through my whole life, it's been hard for me to ask for help, because I've been super independent, and I am kind of introverted, so I'm just like a little nervous. But every time I've gotten past it and asked for help, I'm like, oh, okay, wow. All I had to do was ask. Really, all you have to do is ask, and somebody is going to be willing to help you.
Right. That's awesome. So in closing this podcast, Morgan, where are you headed this year and beyond, in these 5 or 6 hats that you wear? Like, all things real estate, it sounds.
Yeah, I started off real estate. I love real estate. I really investing, creating passive income is my biggest goal.
We got to get you in the Airbnbs.
Those interest me so much because it's also a hospitality experience in those, and I grew up I worked in hospitality for 10 years in
So the
serving and
transition for
bartending.
you would be like,
It's
because
not
it's all about the experience.
right. It's about the experience, and I so long have created these experiences. So that is something I'm super interested in, is just passive income, because again, my time is important to
And
me.
you get to collect these passive incomes. That's what I love, because you and I create these beautiful flips and then you sell them. So
Yeah, and that's active investing.
That's
And
active.
I think
correct.
flipping is great. It's fun, but I think we all get to a point where we realize how valuable time is, and how experiencing life, and whether it's spending time with family, whether it's traveling, whether it's doing
Yes.
nothing, because it's okay to do nothing.
Yeah.
It
yeah.
is okay to do nothing, or whether it's just doing that,
I do that on Sundays, and like I had to let myself do that. Like
right, you feel bad because
Yeah.
some weeks when you're an entrepreneur are busier than others, and then you're sitting like, okay, what do I do now? What can I do right now?
Right.
And you're like,
But get this, like you're so recharged. It's like a battery. Like
it is.
And then
It is.
you're not grouchy when you go to work and like, oh, I got to do this. Like,
No, and you get time, and I think I started realizing too when I was, trying to work that 9 to 5 kind of lifestyle, you're at work or you're working all week, and then you have 2 days off to spend with your family, but to clean, but to get groceries, but to do this,
Errands,
and then
yeah.
before you know it, it's Monday again, and you're just back, and that's just that rat race. You're not given enough time off to actually come out of this almost like mind programming.
Right.
And
I
think,
feel most people are mind programmed, like hypnotized with, especially with the news. Like it's a box that it's antiquated. Go to YouTube. That's all I could say on that.
One of the best things
matter.
I ever did for my life was stop watching the news.
Yeah.
And I know people are like, well, how do you know what's going on in the world? I know what's going on in the world. I know what's happening, but I'm also not subjecting myself to negative programming constantly to keep me low vibrational and to keep me reactive to things all the time, because
Totally.
we don't share how much good there is in the world, and it's not turning a blind eye to what's going on, because I feel like the news is just more opinions now rather than what it used to be back in the day, where they would just read it and it's done.
Oh, yeah.
This is what happened today, it's done, and now it's just opinion oriented in a fact, and fortunately I think it really turns people against each other now. And community and networking and stuff, everything is just so important. So
The community is big. Yeah. Whatever you do to have someone around you and share ideas, and
huge.
team building too is
team building's
giant.
big, getting around other people in your area, in the home space.
So what would you
investing
recommend, one final thought on the viewers, what they're just starting, what would you recommend, like one big thing that you...
What I would recommend is to put yourself out there, as scary as it may be, because I feel that I'm still get nervous too at this point in my life.
Some of us are just introverts.
We're just, we'd rather just kind of be at, but you have to, in order to be in this industry, you have to have that self-development out there. And
because we're all in the same boats. We have to start somewhere.
Everybody starts somewhere, and you don't need to feel any type of way about putting yourself out there, because who cares? At the end of the day, you worry so much about what people think, but why?
Yeah.
It's never really mattered. And
Facts. So, I learned a ton.
Thank you
so
for having
happy
me.
you joined
Yes,
us,
it was so
and
fun.
hope you guys enjoyed this episode 10 of Cut the Curve, and we'll definitely hook you up with Morgan's links. What's the good spot to reach out to you and see your social media?
Reach out to me if you're interested in services. It's thehomecollective.co, so .co. I'm on social media, Instagram _thehomecollective, or we're on TikTok at the Home Collective.
Awesome, guys. Check her out. Have a great day. Peace.